basically selling a security that the security that the seller does not own but promises to deliver by borrowing it from someone. So what does this mean? Let's walk you. Look, tell me how would you shop that? What's the most recent structure? Not to put you on the spot.
It's not recent. I did it a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I actually sold a Tesla.
You did?
And then I bought it.
What?
So
You
now
want to go one way or the other?
Yeah.
No, that's fine. So you shot a Tesla and you bought off.
Yeah, so pretty much.
You still own off?
I still own it, yeah. It's up 30%.
So there you go. Yeah, that's long-term holding. Yeah, remember.
But yeah, I have a margin account.
Yeah.
So I borrow the shares
Yeah.
from the fund and I sell. So typically there's, like, you don't get like the spot, like from where it's actually trading. You get it at a little bit more expensive.
Okay.
And it depends on how many shares the fund actually takes.
Okay. So how do you make money on a short transaction? Somebody walk me through it, right? Yeah.
So you're doing it with the intention, you're hoping that the stock is gonna fall in price.
Correct.
You buy back the cheaper price.
Correct. And so if you don't like Tesla, and Tesla is trading at what, $106 today? How much is it trading? 180? Yeah, suddenly it went from 100 to 180. So, yeah. So, okay, so it's trading at 180. You think it's worth 100. How do you make money on that transaction? You don't own it, so it's not about selling it. Then you make money on your idea that it can go from 180 to $100. The way you execute that idea is you short Tesla, which means that you borrow the share from someone who owns that stock. So now that Lota owns Tesla, I still want to short it. I will go to her and say, okay, can you lend me your share? I borrow the share, I sell it in the market, get the $180 in cash, right? Then I wait. If I'm right, it goes down to $100. At that point, I go back into the market, buy the share, and give it back to you. That's the transaction. So if it goes down to $100, I made $80 in cash. Does that make sense? That's how you execute a negative opinion on a stock. Now, so short selling is pretty widespread. It's a good way of making money on the negative side, but there is a fundamental problem with short selling, which is,
The borrow.
called the borrow.
The downside's sort of unlimited if the stock runs away, well, goes higher and higher.
Correct. So it's an asymmetric loss function, where in the case of a long, so if I own Tesla, the most that I can lose if I own one share of Tesla, the most I can lose is $180. If it goes down to zero, it cannot go below zero. That's the worst that can happen. But in a short, if I'm shorting it at $180, it can go from $180 to $10,000, right? Or $10,180. If it goes, then what happens? Remember, I'm not borrowing $180 from Lota. I am actually borrowing a share. So I'm obligated to return the share, right? So if it goes from 180 to 10,180, I have to buy it back at $10,180, which means I've lost $10,000 on this transaction. So it's an unlimited loss function and a limited gain. The best I can do is if it goes to zero. If it goes to zero, I make $180. But if you long it and it goes to 10,000, you can make a huge amount of money. So it's a fundamental mismatch between shorting and going long or owning the stock, and that is why short selling is so risky and so hard to do. You're also, remember, all the time fighting the market. On average, the market goes up over time. It goes up 10 to 11% over time. That's the historical 80-year average for the S&P 500. So when you're shorting, you're actually fighting that upward movement in the market. And so it's a hard thing to do. And Jim Chanos, who's one of the best short sellers, or one of the famous ones, Canaccord Associates, I came and once spoke in my trade government class, and he was saying a short seller actually has a different mindset. You are intrinsically pessimistic, right? You're intrinsically, and you have to be willing to take a lot of beating, because most people are long, most people own it. And so they're always going to tell you that you're wrong. They're always going to, and the market is going to keep telling you you're wrong until you're right. And so it's a hard thing to do, but can be very profitable. Okay, so let me tell you how a short sale works. this is the structure of a transaction. And I'm going to walk you through it, so let me know if you have any questions. So this is the ultimate borrower. This borrower can be you, can be a hedge fund, can be anybody. So this is, let's say this is the hedge fund, some hedge fund. That's the borrower, right? So the borrower decides that they want to short Tesla. So they have to go to their lending agent, who tends to be what's called a prime broker. So in this case, it could be Goldman Sachs, it could be Morgan Stanley, it could be Credit Suisse, whoever is your broker, Wells Fargo, whoever is your broker. You go to the broker and you say, I want to short sell 100 shares of Tesla. The broker you have to locate the shares first. What does it mean to locate a share? Anybody know? Yeah. You need to find somebody who's willing to lend it to you. That's called a locate. If you don't locate the shares, it's called a naked short. A naked short is illegal. You actually get fined for it. So you have to locate a share, and so the way it's automatic, it's pretty automatic. Usually what happens is when you put the short sale, you put in the short sale, the broker will automatically do the locate for you. And if they can find the shares, they will short it. If they can't find it, they will let you know that they can't find the shares. And then they will go look for it, and it's called special inform. We'll come to that. Okay, so this lending agent it could be a Morgan Stanley or a Goldman Sachs or whoever, Wells Fargo, any of them. Now, what do they do? How do they locate the shares? They basically go to people who own the shares and ask them to lend it to them. So the beneficial owner is usually some big firm, a big shop that owns a bunch of these shares. So who do you think are the biggest beneficial owners in this business? Fidelity is a big player. Who's one of the biggest? Two of the biggest. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. Why? Because they're passive investors. They have a bunch of index funds, right? Like SPY and so on. Those funds are just sitting on these shares. Nothing is happening. They're just sitting on these shares. So they decide to lend it. Why not just lend it? If I'm sitting on all these shares, we own all these shares, why not just lend it and make some money? The reason you lend it is because you get some commission on lending. This is the heart of why there are funds that are zero interest, zero cost funds. Fidelity has launched them, Vanguard has launched them. How can they pay for it? What does it mean when your fee is zero? How can they make money? The way they make money is by lending the shares. That's what allows for zero fee profits. Okay, so the beneficial owners, this is the BlackRocks, the Vanguard, the State Street, Fidelity, and so on. Okay, so the beneficial owner will lend the shares to the lending agent, which is the Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, and in return they will get some fees. The lending agent in turn will give the shares to the borrower will sell it and get the cash. So in this case, we get the $180. Now, the key to remember in this transaction, and this is really important, is that the $180 that gets generated from the short sale doesn't actually end up in the hedge fund's hands. The prime broker keeps it and invests it. That's called the collateral. So the prime broker will take the $180. So let's do this. This is one share of Tesla. This is one share of Tesla. And then the collateral we said was $180 was the amount of cash, right? So sold for $180. The collateral is usually 102%, so it will be 180 plus 2%, the small amount. The lending agent will take that from the borrower. So whatever money is being generated from the sale is retained by the lending agent. The lending agent, the Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley, will then invest that and earn a return. With me so far? Yeah? Yeah? No? Yeah? Okay. So we'll earn a return. This return is split three ways. Ultimately, this is the source of revenue. This transaction is where the money actually comes in, right? So this is split three ways. The prime broker keeps some of it, give some of it to the hedge fund in form of what's called rebate, and give some of it to the beneficial owner as fees. So 3 people share in this return. This return usually is treasury interest rate. So they take the cash, put it in a safe investment, something like treasury, bills or whatever it is. They make 1 or 2%. They take that 1 or 2% and split it 3 ways. Okay? Okay, that's how this ecosystem works. At the end of it, when you're done, when you want to cover the position, you go back to the lending agent, you say, I'm going to cover my position. They will go and buy back in the market. They will release the collateral at that point. So you get your cash, your $180, or if it's gone down, you get the entire $180 because that's how much you sold it for, remember? And you make that $80 profit. Any questions? Yeah.
So how would you do it if you could short this guy?
Well, you can't do it anymore if you're working for a prime broker because the prime broker's responsibility is to locate automatically. It's hard to do, but there are, I think it can happen. I'm trying to, yeah, I don't know if they will be remit. So when I do my shot, I have to go and put in my request, and then it locates, and I know it's there. So technically, I could, so I could go make it in the following way. So if I own 100 shares of Tesla, and I put in a sale order for 120, right? They will actually not go and look at that. What will happen is at the end of the day, when they're doing the match, they'll find that I'm short 20. That will show up as a short. Do you see what's going on?
They'll make you cover that immediately.
They will make you cover it. So it can be for a short while, but then they'll ask you to come in and either locate it or cover it. Could be, yeah. But then there are some other parties that are exempt from this. Certain brokers are exempt from this. They can go ahead and do it. Okay. So these are the mechanics of short selling. Now, there are some interesting things, and that's about risks that various parties carry. What do you think the risks to the beneficial owner is? What risks are the beneficial owner carrying? If any, yeah.
If they want to sell their share, they have to wait for the share to be unwound.
No. So technically they can call in the shares anytime. So if they want to sell it, they can go back and say, I want the shares right now.
If they have to lie, I don't remember the sales.
They can get it instantly and that's a risk that the borrower carries. It's called buy-in risk. So let's say Tesla, I do this transaction, it goes to 180, I shorted it, it goes to 1,000, and then it comes back down to 100. The beneficial owner can call it when it goes to 1,000, and I'm closed out of my position at exactly the wrong time, the worst possible time, even though ultimately my call was correct. That's called buy-in risk. The borrowers always carry that risk. That is why it's important to have a good prime broker, because a good broker, a good prime that you have a relationship with, if something like that happens where somebody calls in your 1,000, calls it in at 1,000, they will immediately go and find someone else to lend it to you to replace it at 1,000. You see what I'm saying? It's really important. Otherwise, you can get completely wrong-footed. And I'll give you an example. I have a person I know who basically shorted GameStop. He was a GameStop analyst, knew the company really well, right? Very smart guy. And he shorted it at $400, because it was at $20 or $30, went to 400 or 200, something like that. He shorted it at, and he was like, there is no way on earth this company is worth that, and put a lot of money behind it. That night he was closed, his position was closed, more because of margin rather than buying. He was right, within a day or two, he was right, but he was wiped out. He actually was wiped out, because he was so sure of that trade. Dangerous place to go, unless you know what to do, yeah. That's right. So there's counterparty risk to the beneficial owner too, right? You're lending your shares, you're hoping that the other party is going to be around. If the other party is not around, you're in trouble, because you've lent your shares. and so nobody can make you whole. So you're carrying counterparty risk, and for that you need to be paid some fees in addition to the lending, right? Okay. Now, short selling, a lot of beneficial owners have walked away from this business. Why? A lot of active managers, scalpers, have walked away from this business. You know scalpers? Anybody know? No? What's scalpers? It's one of the biggest in the world. It's the California Employees Retirement Pension and whatever. So there's scalpers, there's NYSERS, which is the New York one. Those are the two biggest, right? And Japan's pension fund, which is the world's biggest, walked away from this in 2019. Scalpers walked away from it in 2009. They don't lend shares. Why?
You have two chiefs in the philosophy put option.
Let's go there in a minute. Why did they walk away from this business? Yeah.
You make a better basis point for counterparty risk, so like SPV lending the extra 60 bits.
Yeah, but actually the lending business is not that risky because there's so much collateral, there's so much margin that the thing has to drop a lot before you lose money, right? The margin protects you quite a bit. 30% margin is a lot, so it has to go down. And remember, it's being mark to market daily. New margin is coming in. It's not like you wait. Its margin is happening intraday. If you hit the margin call, the broker's margin call, you will have to pay. I had a professor, very well known. He's considered the king of IPOs at Florida. He was teaching a course in corporate finance. My PhD seminar in corporate finance. Every half an hour he'd get up and go somewhere. Finally he told us, he said, I'm getting margin calls, and you could go through that. So it's intraday. So you're actually relatively safe from that perspective. You carry some risk, but it's quite safe. Yeah. So what was my question? I forgot. Question was?
Why did Calper stop?
Why did Calper stop? Because two things. One, they think that short sellers are evil, right? That's the general story. Is they're bad people. They're anti-American. Is the standard argument. Is they're doing bad things because all of us are long. The pension funds are long, everybody's long, and they're trying to pull down the prices. But the real reason they did that is because they're saying we are betting against. They were getting a lot of pushback about betting against yourself. So by lending to short sellers, you're causing prices to go down, which is hurting you. Why would you do something that hurts you? That was the thought process. That was the argument. So after the 2008 crash, the 2008 crash was blamed on short sellers, which was not aware. So it was like the financial crisis. And I'll show you some data on it. The financial crisis was blamed on short sellers, and there were stories about short sellers ganging up and pushing down certain companies. Citi was an example of that. That there were a bunch of these hedge funds that got together and said, let's just go after these companies and let's keep pushing the prices down. So there was a lot of pushback against short selling after 2008, and so big owners like CalPERS and NYSERS, they were like, you know what, we're not going to lend to that. Does that make sense? Is that a reasonable argument?
Why does not apply to BlackRock?
That's a different question. That's a good question. Hold on to it after we answer the first one. Then you will answer it. Right? Yeah.
So we do have clear selling, and we've had a lot of offers that are overpriced. It's not necessarily a good thing, because we don't hear all of it.
That's a good reason for why short selling should exist, right? Because short selling, if you think about it, without it, what are we looking at? What is the disciplining mechanism? It's like, even though it's a small group of people and not a relatively small population relative to the size of the long industry, it's a very critical component, because without that, what brings sanity to markets? What makes, how will you ensure prices stay in reasonable domain? But setting that aside, does it make sense for them to stop lending based on this argument?
I was really excited to quote on that one. I think that's a lot of value. I was actually saying the shipping business, the psychology of it for investors or teachers, firefighters, who want their money to rise. Particularly, the challenge that we use, value of stock of companies, even valuation.
Yeah, but they're not in the business of
Yeah.
doing good, social good, right? You're right, on the social good spectrum, this is a free rider problem, right? A social good problem. Yeah, you want prices to be efficient, but do I want to be the one causing it for no fee, for loss for myself?
Absolutely, yeah. How do you manage all three? What's the best way to manage all three?
But you're talking about why short sellers should exist. But are these people reasonable in saying, you know what, we are shooting ourselves in the foot?
I have a question. In terms of fees, how much are they doing? How much are beneficial and how much are you making? Maybe in comparison to how much they make from owning your shares?
Okay, so there's no way to, I can answer the first question, there's no way to answer the second question because I don't know what they're invested in and how much money they make and so on.
I guess my question is, does this help them diversify their risk or not?
Well, it's not, it's so on average, so the business is big for the people who are in this industry. For both beneficial owners in this. So BlackRock, again, zero fee funds are supported by short selling fees. So it's around a $15 billion industry, just the fees alone, just to those guys. So it's a pretty significant. That's how they can give these funds for no cost to you, right? Yeah.
They stop and look at the different funds. They're not really.
Yes, but they can say as a matter of principle, I don't want to be in it. You go find somebody else, that's fine. I don't want to be in it. But is there a fundamental economic reason why they shouldn't? Yeah.
Very question of me.
Yeah. Sure. That's a good summary. In my mind, I look at it and you go, if you are truly a long-term owner and you believe in your stock, you're buying it because you think it's a good stock to buy, right? Then it shouldn't matter whether you're lending it or not, because the short seller, if the short seller is right, then you're wrong. Period. You shouldn't be owning that stock. If you're right, the short seller is wrong. The short seller is going to lose money. So you make some money off the short seller. Either way, it doesn't make any sense to say I'm not going to lend to you because you're going to pull down prices. Either you believe in your position or you don't. If you believe that your position is a good position, then the short seller is going to lose. And if you believe it's not, you shouldn't be owning that stock. Either way. So I don't see the logic of saying, listen, I'm going to say it's bad. Optically, it might look nicer to say, I'm not going to get into this person. Yeah.
I have a question, do they do anything on their own ticket?
No, generally they don't. No. These are long-only stocks, right? They take long-only retirement stocks. Which goes back to this question, why does Vanguard, Fidelity, and why do Vanguard and State Street and BlackRock specifically, why are they in this business? How are they different?
I believe it's mainly because of the fees that they get, and regardless of how the market goes, they will get the fees. Whereas, for example, the pension funds are liability driven, so they have to pay.
No, they'll still get those fees. Those fees will come no matter what. You're talking about the
No,
fees from short selling?
fees from England. I'm talking about fees from people who put their money in this.
Yeah.
They're getting like.
There are a lot of active managers who get fees who won't do it too. The reason that these guys do it is because they're passive managers. They have a lot of index funds, passive funds, so they're owning it no matter what. Whether it goes up or not or down, they don't care. Why? Because they have to just track the index. If the index goes up, their shares go up. Index goes down, their shares go up. They're completely indifferent to how their stocks do. So they have a huge incentive to lend. So there's work that shows that higher your passive ownership, the higher your lendable shares, and more shorting can happen, right? So essentially, okay, so that's the story. Any questions on this? Let me walk you through. So I walked you through a lot of this. Oh, two things worth noting here. When you lend your shares, you give up the right to vote. That's important to the new buyer is the one that gets the right to vote. You also, in a case of a short, have two dividends that get paid. one dividend gets paid by the company and one dividend gets paid by the short seller. So one dividend gets paid by the company to the new owner, and then the lender, the beneficial lender, also has to get paid dividend because they've lent the shares, right? It's their shares. So who pays them? The short seller. So when you're short selling, you have to be aware as to what the dividend yield is. How much dividends do you have to pay when dividends get declared? That's part of your cost of short selling. With me? Okay. So usually a custodial bank, straightforward. Anything else here? So we talked about this unlimited loss and past history. This I've already uploaded, by the way. Okay, let me quickly walk you through how a short sale happens in terms of margins. So let's take a simple example. So let's say Kingdom Fund buys 1,000 shares of Pepsi Americas at $18 using borrowed money. What is the initial margin? The margin requirement is called Reg T. It's 50%. This holds for both longs and shorts. You may not know it, but it's there. When you trade, it's automatically there. So you have to put up 50% of whatever you buy or whatever is short as collateral, as equity, every time you trade. Right? If you have a brokerage in broker account, you're doing it. You may or may not know it. Okay, so in this case, my initial margin requirement will be $9,000. Why? Because it's 18 times 1,000 shares, and I have to put up 50% of it. So my initial margin is going to be $9,000. So with me, that's the equity that I need to put up. Okay. Now, a Reg T is applicable only when there are additional purchases. Not during, once you've made the purchase. If you have a question, ask. Question?
No, I just looking at the sentence,
That's because this is a Reg T margin, not a broker margin. Is that what you're thinking about? Maybe. What are you thinking?
So, the 50% is more down. What's the difference between the two?
So the Reg T requirement is a federal requirement. It's a Fed requirement which says every new purchase, every new short, or every new buy should be 50% of it should be supported by equity. Right? Then after that, once you buy it, they don't care. Going forward, you don't need to carry 50% equity. So if the price drops to $15 per share, then calculate the amount of Reg T call. The answer is there is no Reg T call. Yeah.
But I think because the base on securities, like equities, like it's like treasury, you might have a lower like actual requirement.
So no, this is for cash. Even for cash, it's 50%. But the way it works is slightly different. And I'm actually going to, if you're giving equities, it gets a little more complicated. And with treasuries, it's different again. I think that's way beyond what I have it in the next slide, but I was going to skip over it. Because there's just so much you can, this is just for your information. Okay. So let's say the price drops to $15. So let's look at this. Let's look at the balance sheet here. It's pretty straightforward. Equity is 9,000. I can borrow up to 9,000. That's what it's saying, right? And I'm buying Pepsi Americas for $18,000. That's what the balance sheet looks like. You get it? Okay. Now, if it drops to $15, my Pepsi America has dropped to $15,000. What is my debt? Debt is still $9,000 because I borrowed $9,000, right? And what is my equity here? $6,000. With me? Giving me a total of $15,000. Good? Make sense? Now, how much is $6,000? What percentage is $6,000 of my debt? So if I'm taking, this is what, 6 divided by 16 is what? 40%, right? So should there be a margin call here? Should I get it up to 50%? The answer is no. because the Fed doesn't care about marking to market, they just care about the initial transaction. With me? Okay. Same thing holds on the short side. And so this is where, okay, so we should skip. So same thing happens, before that there's a maintenance requirement, which is 30% of market value. So let's say that the price goes to $25, what will the balance sheet look like? So, we have cash at $25,000. We have debt at $9,000, right? And we have equity at $16,000. So in this setting, we're looking at equity of significant equity, right? As a percentage of market value. So there's no margin call. But what if it drops to 10,000? What does the margin call? What happens at this point? So now my pass is 10,000, and my debt is still 9,000. So how much equity do I need to carry in this case? The maintenance requirement is 30%. So how much do I need to carry? $3,000. So I carry 3,000, 30%, right? So that should be 12,000, which means my margin call is how much? Margin call is $2,000, right? Make sense? So now I have another 2,000 here in cash. You see how I got the 2,000? Yes, no? Because my equity is $1,000. It's 10,000 minus 9,000, 1,000. That's not enough. My broker will call and say, you have only $1,000 in equity. You need to have 3,000, which is 30% of pass. So I'll have a margin call for 2,000, which means I need to pony up additional equity of 2,000, which will be carried as cash in my account. That happens dynamically all through the day, right? Same thing, almost identical with the short side, so I won't belabor the point. It's identical, it works the same way. And so I'm going to skip this regulation as a show and show you an example. This was the Cayuga fund when I ran it a while ago, but I'll show you exactly what it looks like. So what we have here is, this is uploaded by the way, so if you want you can download it, but we have, this is the long market value, the short market value, $8 million long, $5.96 million short, and you can see that that I'm keeping, so notice here that it's $6 million long, $5.9 million long, and then there's $6 million short sitting in cash. What is that? Where is that coming from? So the overall equity is $11.5 million. Let me get out of this. Give me 1 second. Let me get out of this. And let me make it simple. Yeah. Does that help? So what is going on here? This is what the hedge fund balance sheet looks like. This is what the Cayuga fund balance sheet looks like, right? So what's going on here? This is the long market value. This is the amount I own, amount of shares I own. $8.142 million, right? It's sitting in the margin account, that's fine. I shorted $5.98 million of shares, correct? So that's what's sitting in my short account. Now, I have $9 million in cash, and that's broken up into two cash here. What is going on? That's correct. That is the 102% collateral that I was talking about. So my short market value is 5.8. I multiply that by roughly 1.02. That gives me the $6.058 million. That's the amount that's being carried by my prime broker in my short account. That's the cash. I cannot use this cash for anything. I can't use this cash to buy or sell anything. It's just sitting there. What is the prime broker doing? The prime broker takes, in this case, Smith Barney or Goldman Sachs at that time, I think. They take the $6 million, they invest it, and they make money and they give me a rebate. They give me some of that money back. Remember, I said they take the collateral, they invest it. That's the $6 million that's getting invested. The amount that I can withdraw from the fund at this point in time is $3.2 million. That's the free cash that's sitting in my brokerage account. So $3.2 million. So this is the number I was talking about when in 2008 when I talked about Citigroup going under, that possibility. There was $5 million at that point sitting in this account. That's the amount I moved over. Because I couldn't move this, I can't touch this, I was not willing to sell all that stuff. So the only amount that I could move out was this $5 million that was sitting over here. This is what I did. With me? Okay. So yeah. Now, and this is basically telling you this information here is giving you an example of couple of, so I'll give you a couple of examples in short. So this was Steiner Leisure and this is Asian Marine Petroleum. So this was long and this was short. 1070 shares long, 2500 shares short. And you can see the price, here's the market value. And that's 31,533. This is a report I receive every day. You will hopefully you will run a fund one day. I don't know if you will or not, but this is how you read a report on a prime brokerage account. This is telling me how much is my margin requirement. So this is saying that the house requirement is 9,460, which is 30% of 31,553. So this is basically 31 times 0.3 is my margin. What does it mean when I say house? House is the brokerage. The broker is saying that I need to keep $9,460 as collateral, as equity, as margin, right? X here is saying this is what the exchange needs. And F here, Fed is 15,000, which is 50% of this 31,533. Remember the 0.5? That's what is being fed. So the Fed requires 15,000, the exchange requires 7,833, and the house requires 9,460. The Fed number doesn't matter because it matters only when you buy and sell, not on a daily basis, right? So that number you don't care about until you buy it, until you buy new shares. Until that point, you don't care about the Fed number, so you can ignore that. The X number is always usually less than the house number. So the exchange requires 7,883. If you meet your prime broker's requirement, you will almost certainly meet the exchange requirement. It will be equal to or higher than the exchange requirement, right? So 9,460 is what I need. Same thing happens with the short side. So $40,000 is short, 12,500, which is 25% is what the house needs, 30% is what, I guess they both need, it's 30%. So both need 30% here, and the Fed needs 50%. So what they do is they do this for every position, they add it up, they make sure you have enough equity. If you don't, they call you and say, put some more equity in there. That's how it works. Okay? Yes? Okay. Rest of it, you don't care about. One day when you run a fund, you will care a lot. And I hope you do. It is a good thing. Okay, let me show you one other thing. This is to create a fund in 2013. So this is what we were paying, and it's Fed funds minus 45 basis points. What does that mean? What does that mean? So it's easy to borrow rate, Fed funds minus 45 basis points. So that's the amount I have to pay, correct. So if that's my fee. The fee is actually the 45 basis points, but here's how it works. So the amount I I'm paying is Fed funds minus 45 basis points. Now, if Fed funds rate is 0, then what am I paying? I'm paying 45 basis points, exactly. If the Fed funds rate is 45 basis points, what am I paying? 0, I'm paying nothing. If the Fed funds rate is 145 basis points, what am I paying? You're earning a percent. That's the rebate. That's the amount I'm getting back. So think of it this way. This is the way you think of the ecosystem. It's like these guys are taking my money from shorting, right? That collateral. They invest it in the Fed funds rate. And they pay me Fed funds minus 45 basis points. With me? That 45 basis points gets split between the prime broker and the lender. You understand? That's how this business works. So Fed funds, when I do a short sale, you're getting cash from the seller. That cash is invested. Usually it will be invested at Fed funds or something more than that, somewhere around that. And they will take the Fed funds, take out 45 basis points, keep it with themselves, give the rest to me, and they will split the 45 basis points amongst themselves. Yeah? Okay. So, and that happens only if you're an institution, you're a hedge fund. In your personal account, you get nothing. You don't get any rebates. So if you go and short in your personal account, they don't give you any rebates. Right? Rebates are only if you're an institution. Okay. So here is an example. So let's look at some big ones here. Nordic American Tankers, NAT. It says daily rate is 8.5%. What does that mean? Notice, everything here is 1.875. A lot of them are, let me see, what is, does it say? These are all kind of all over the place. So, okay, so let's take a look. So, what does this mean when it says 8.5% daily rebate rate? Yeah. That's right. This is called a special. So this is a stock that's hard to borrow. And so the people who are lending it can ask more money for it because it's hard to borrow. It's not available, locates are not easy. So they come out and they say, you've got to pay us 8.5% to make this happen for us to lend to you, right? So this stock, if I'm trying to short Nordic American tankers, I have to expect I'm going to pay 8.5%. So that thing needs to go down enough to at least offset this, plus make more money. Yeah?
The consensus is that the stock is so why is this person performing?
Why is this person holding it at 8%? No, the person owns it and is lending it to us at 8%, right?
He's going to get it back, right?
He's going to get it back.
So he's going to fix it out. So it's simply that for the guy
That's what makes markets, right? Somebody owns this. Somebody believes that you're wrong. Just because there are 100 short sellers, think about GameStop. Somebody owned it. A whole bunch of people owned it. There are a whole bunch of people short it. This is what makes markets. You go ask the person, they say, no, you are short the bunch. You're short the wrong stock. You see my point? This is what makes markets. There's somebody who disagrees with you.
I do, but it's not just one person disagrees. It's a lot of people.
Doesn't matter. There are a lot of people who own the stock who disagree with you, with the short sellers too. For every one short seller, there's someone who owns the stock. So you got to believe there's difference of opinion. Right now, FRB, First Republic Bank, short or long? There are people who want to short it, there are people who want to buy it, right? I have no idea which way. Credit Suisse, right now, it's down 22%. A lot of people will be shorting it, but a lot of people own it. Why? Because there are people who think that it's actually going to survive and do fine and it's not going to have a bank run. There are a bunch of people who think that it's in deep shit and it's going to have a bank run. This is the beauty of markets. I love it. Every moment of it. You've got to love it, right? somebody is disagreeing with everything you're saying, which is why there's somebody on the other side of this transaction. You might think you know the answer, but somebody is telling you, no, you don't know it, I know the answer. You're fighting all the time. So much fun. Yeah.
2021 AMD and GameStop, not GameStop, GameStop, was very hard to switch. You couldn't work with it.
Yeah.
And so I had some time where looking before that, and they were losing a lot of money because they got consistently going up every day. But it was very hard to actually buy.
Yes.
So they met, if they wanted to sell 100, they met, but they only got like 5.
I will show you a few examples, right? So I'm going to move to some examples. So that happens all the time. Nordic Atlantic American Tanker. I wanted to desperately short it. We were short 3,000 shares. I wanted to up the share. At this point, it was 8.5%. There was a time I wanted to short a whole bunch of it. The Kirill Fund unanimously agreed that this was a great shot, and we tried to short it. The short fees that they were asking, the rebate that they were asking, was 29.5%. 29%. Why? Because 90% of the shares were short. Almost all locates out there were short. Right? There was no more shares available to short. So what do you do? Which comes to the question you asked, or you asked, I can't remember. Can you go to a different market? Options, for example. Can you buy puts? Right? Do you go to the futures market? Turns out it's not as easy as it sounds. Because when it is 29% in the short market, what does that 29% mean? It means that every year, just to keep the short position, I have to pay 29% in fees. Which means I have to make at least 29%. That thing has to go down at least 29% for me to break even. And then I start making money, right? When you see a stock like that, a hard to borrow, a significant hard to borrow, that happens with, I've seen that with Tesla. Tesla has hit 20%, ARK has hit 20% several times. When you have a hard to borrow stock, right, very hard to short it in the options market as well. In other words, buy puts. If you go and buy those puts, the implied balls are going to be so big that you're going to pay through your nose. There's no free lunch here. There is no free lunch. So it sounds easy, just buy the put, make it happen. I tried everything with Nordic Americans, could not make it happen, and we weren't willing to reach 30%. So we were like, let's just walk away, not worth it. Yeah. So yeah, these are called on the special because they're not general collateral. General collateral is everything that is basically at this 45 basis points. When they're charging only 45. Here instead of 45, they're charging 8.5%. You see that? So in this case, for me to break even at 0, the Fed funds rate will have to be 8.5%. Then I don't pay any fees. Not 45 basis points. Okay. I'll continue tomorrow. I'll walk you through a couple of examples. I'll walk you through GameStop and what happened there, and we talk about some examples of where it might be hard to shop. Okay. Sounds good. I'll see you next Wednesday. Right? Take care.